Hello, everyone, and welcome to AASHTO's webinar for the National Transportation Product Evaluation Program today, dealing with membership roles and responsibilities as it relates to each of you on the line today. We do have a diverse group in front of us. From the looks of it, I can see that we've got state members, we've got industry members, and then we've got representatives from the laboratories that contract with NTPEP in order to carry out the evaluations and audit programs. So I am Catherine Molesky. I am the Senior Program Manager for this Technical Service Program, and I have muted all of you on the line. This is being recorded, so you do have an opportunity to ask any questions or provide any comments or concerns in the chat window, which you can access through the taskbar that came up when you entered into the Zoom webinar. So I will answer all the questions or entertain any comments or concerns after these slides wrap up. So we'll have plenty of time. I've allotted 1 hour for this webinar, but it would probably take about 25 to 35 minutes to go through the information as it relates to the content and outline I put forth for this webinar. So a couple of things we're going to go over today. We're going to briefly touch on the NTPEP structure itself in case those of you who may not be familiar with it, we can make sure that we're all on the same page moving forward since NTPEP is such a large technical service program. We're going to define each of the roles as it relates to NTPEP. We're going to review the responsibilities for each of those roles. And obviously, as I just mentioned, I'll answer any questions you may have. So to begin with, at the top, we've got a steering committee that oversees the entire NTPEP program. In addition to that, I have a team that works with me here in the Washington, D.C. office of several team members. We've got over 26 different technical committees. And then we've got NTPEP voting and non-voting members, in addition to the voting and non-voting members on each of the technical committees. So if we break this apart, our steering committee right now is made up of a chairman. It used to be Aaron Gillespie of West Virginia, but he had recently resigned, so we are in search of a new chair to oversee this program. We've got our vice chairman from Wisconsin, and then regions 1 through 4 represented, as I have listed there on the screen, from Maine, Tennessee, Missouri, and Montana. The reason I bring this to your attention is most importantly to note here, if you are not familiar, Region 1 is represented, as you can see, in the Northeast. Maine is your contact there. Any states that are of the Northeast region, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, obviously email or call Joe, or you can always contact Catherine or any of my team members here at AASHTO if you want to bring any items of concern to NTPEP. And then the same would go for the rest of the regional representatives. That's one of their responsibilities when overseeing their region as part of the steering committee, to be able to communicate with the states within those regions to make sure that NTPEP's meeting the wants and needs of your specific region. Next, we've got the NTPEP team members who are full-time internal staff here within Washington, D.C. I'm the Senior Program Manager. I also am assisted with 2 Associate Program Managers, a Business System Analyst, Implementation Specialist, an Administrative Coordinator, and then several contractors that help carry out the tasks of this program. The 2 major tasks, in addition to plethora of many other things that each of these individuals take on to help carry out the success of this program, they act as a liaison to several of the technical committees, and they also assist with all the data mine related tasks. Those of you who are familiar with this program realize that data mine does act as the nucleus of NTPEP. So one of our big priorities internally is to make sure that not only are we carrying out the tasks as it relates to being a liaison for each of the technical committees, we're making sure that our data mine system functions correctly. Next, we'll go over to the NTPEP voting and non-voting members, which are made up of State Department of Transportation officials. So let me go back for a second. So these, like I mentioned, they have to be full-time staff members of any state agency within the United States. FHWA connects in the non-voting capacity, but they do not have any voting rights. And right now, we currently do not have any FHWA representation for NTPEP. For the technical committees, each of these have leadership positions. We've got a technical committee chair as well as a vice chair. And then since NTPEP is a partnership between state and industry members, we encourage and invite as many representatives from both the states and industry to participate on the technical committees. There is no limitation unless it ends up being that the industry outweighs the state representation on the technical committee. Then we just have to do a check on that and make sure that we reorganize appropriately to make sure that it's an equal balance. So we've got an industry representative, industry participant, industry association, and those are broken down accordingly, and I'll go into further detail in a little bit as to why we broke them down the way we did, and then obviously once you read or review the descriptions with me, you can then identify what role you play within either a technical committee or if you're a NTPEP voting or non-voting member, so on and so forth. And then also the testing facility representatives. And as I previously mentioned, these are representatives that are carrying out the tasks associated with these evaluation programs and audit programs. We highly encourage them to provide their expertise on the technical committee conference calls and in-person meetings. So as far as the NTPEP voting and non-voting members, so this is at a very high level. This is talking about all of NTPEP, not a specific technical committee. So each state has one NTPEP voting member and one NTPEP non-voting member. And this is listed on the NTPEP website, which I'll show you guys at the end of this webinar. They provide responses back to all the ballots received prior to the given deadline. And these type of ballots include technical committee work plans, revisions to information and operations guide, etc. And there's no given time frame of how often these type of documents go out. It really is, you know, if a technical committee needs to make a revision to the work plan, they're free to do so any 365 days of the year. We don't send any of these documents out on, you know, a set date or a set part of the year. It's throughout the entire year. So the NTPEP non-voting members, you know, they can provide feedback, but they can't provide a vote. So I highly encourage these non-voting members to send your information that you want to have resulted in your ballot to your voting member of your state. That way your feedback as well as the voting member's feedback can be included within the ballot result itself. And this is an example of what you would receive from our ASTRO ballot system to prompt you to, that you know that NTPEP has sent out a ballot, that you need to respond to that ballot by the given deadline. So if you are saying to yourself, I'm a voting or non-voting member and I have not received an email of this sort, certainly my email will be up on the screen at the end of this webinar. Don't hesitate to reach out. It's extremely important that we are making sure that all this information that's being balloted throughout the ballot system for NTPEP gets to the correct people within each of the states. So that will only make sure that we are carrying out the tasks for all 50 states and not just the select region or, you know, 25 or 30 states. We want to make sure that every single state is involved whenever a change is made or an addition is made to either the operations guide or the technical committee work plan. Okay, next, it's also important, along with the ballots, responding to those ballots, that we keep the NTPEP data usage survey results current. And what do I mean by data usage survey results? So a couple of years ago, NTPEP carried out a very comprehensive survey, did a lot of outreach to identify what data is being used by each of the states. But in order to maintain those results that we collected over the years, I realized that there are changes, you know, almost daily within a DOT. You know, you're using a product, so the next day you maybe not be using that type of product. It's extremely important that when you go onto the NTPEP.org website, you will see a map here. I highlighted Texas here, but you can click on your state to identify what data is being used, as well as the person responsible in case the manufacturer wants to contact your state to figure out, let's just say, you know, a manufacturer wants to know if Texas DOT is utilizing the geotextile data coming out of the NTPEP evaluation program. That contact information is listed here. If you have trouble accessing the map based on some security measures within your state DOT, There's nothing that we can do about it from the ASHA side, but there is an alternative way that you can click on a link that says full survey data here. Once you click on that, obviously you have to be a state member to access the spreadsheet that I bring up here, but that'll be able to give you a spreadsheet and then have you review the information we have listed there as it relates to the contact for each of that category that's being utilized by your state. And then also, just as important, that you'll see NTPEP is that column there, whether or not you're allowing for the data to be used within your state, requiring it, so on and so forth. If you come across a category that you may be unfamiliar with what that category means, it's okay. Just email, call me. We can work it out together. The end all be here is we just need to make sure that this information that we're providing on our NTPEP.org website is readily available and accurate. I don't want inaccurate information out here because then it causes a detriment to not only that state, but also the manufacturers that are participating in each of the NTPEP programs. Next, the responsibility list for the NTPEP member and non-voting members would be to keep the membership list current for all technical committees. Sending any type of revisions that you see, whether it relates to a technical committee or even if your non-voting or voting member changes, you can send them to the administrative coordinator here within NTPEP, or you can also send them to me to make sure these changes get made. If you're interested in accessing that, right after this call, going on to NTPEP.org will get you there. And then on the left-hand side, there's a membership link. And then you could, you'll see in the center here, there's a drop down. This is the guardrail committee, but you could also access the 20 some other technical committees just to make sure that, if you had somebody either resign or retire from a position, either within your agency or manufacturers, the same would go for you because we have all of our industry representatives listed as well on these pages. Once again, I realize that you have a lot of other stuff on your plates that NTPEP becomes a voluntary task for many of you, but in order to maintain the credibility of this program, it's extremely important to keep these pages up to date. I can't stress that enough. And I can't stress this enough. So, I can tell from you participating on today's call that you're interested, you feel that NTPEP is extremely important. You also have a lot of colleagues, either in your departments or in your agencies, that may not be familiar with what NTPEP is, yet there is an advantage of them knowing what NTPEP is so they could utilize the data coming out of this program. So I'm tasking each of you on today's call to be the NTPEP champion. I say there for your state, but also manufacturers, the same would go for you. I realize that the manufacturing communities are very close-knit. So, if you have association meetings or regional state meetings, make sure that NTPEP's being talked about because this is a program that's grown very extensively over the last 25 years, and we want to make sure that it's getting utilized to its full extent. So how can you do this? I'm sure you've heard of the 3 E's before. You can educate your coworkers or colleagues. You can engage them. So if you are a member on a technical committee and you may have a colleague that doesn't have any idea about NTPEP or wants to learn more about NTPEP, you could do one of 2 things. You can have them call me, and obviously I can have a conversation with them on how to, become more aware of what NTPEP has to offer to them, or engage them to participate on a quarterly conference call or attend the annual meeting. And obviously, empowerment will also go a long way with making sure that not only is NTPEP being used by you, but it's being used by your entire agency or your entire manufacturer. So switching gears here, we're now going to go from the NTPEP voting and non-voting members to the technical committee level, which consists of, we'll take it step by step here, but first we're going to work on the technical committee voting and non-voting members. So this is the state representation or FHWA representation on each of the technical committees. So the main responsibility for each of these members is to participate on all scheduled technical committee conference calls. Invitations are sent out via email. If you are not receiving this information for some reason or another, you can contact the NTPEP staff member and we can make sure that you receive all these invitations going forward. Next is to provide input on all items received via email from the technical committee leadership for NTPEP staff. In addition to ballots being sent out, there are sometimes technical items that result either from an outstanding item from a conference call or something comes up during an evaluation or audit program, and the chair or vice chair is looking for some feedback through email is usually the device we use to collect that information instead of having conference call after conference call, because that could add up to somebody's calendar and them spending a lot of time doing NTPEP stuff instead of other stuff. Next thing is to provide response back to all ballots received prior to given deadline, just like we talked about with the NTPEP voting and non-voting members. This relates to the technical committee work plans, any revisions to operations and information guide. In the past, we have sent out ballots at the NTPEP voting and non-voting level moving forward beginning this year, 2020. Right now, the next set of work plans to be balloted will be sent out at the technical committee level, meaning the voting and non-voting members of the technical committee, as well as the industry membership of that committee, will be able to review and comment, and those that are able to vote will be able to vote on those ballots before it gets to the NTPEP committee level. Like I just explained, there's a voting and non-voting member for each of the states. This will encourage everyone at every single level within the NTPEP umbrella to provide feedback and make sure that everyone's in the know of any changes being made with any of the programs. And like I mentioned with the non-voting NTPEP members, if you're a non-voting technical committee member, just send your feedback to the voting members so that they could include that information when they go to send their ballot out. And I do apologize because I'm getting a lot of messages saying that there's a cap and people are not able to get in. But like I mentioned, it is being recorded. So I thought the cap was like 500 people, and I see 100 people on the line. But rest assured, it will be recorded and available on our YouTube channel directly after this webinar ends. So just to bring back, this is the same screenshot that I showed you. So just as the NTPEP voting members and non-voting members at the committee level get these emails, so will you from an industry and a state perspective at the technical committee level. You'll receive these emails that prompt you to submit your response to the ballot at the given deadline. So next thing that I want to make sure each of the technical committee members and non-voting members are doing is ensuring your state is utilizing the data and documentation resulting from the evaluation and audit programs the technical committee is tasked with performing. So the way I look at it is, you know, these groups of people are meeting once a quarter, once a year in person. They're putting a bunch of input into something and then making sure the output's even greater than the amount of input put it into this device I have on the screen. So I really want to make sure that those working hard to make sure that this information includes what the states and industry are looking for in the way of, you know, the type of data being produced or the audit documentation being produced. You know, they work very hard on this. The last thing I want to have happen is somebody work really hard on something and then that something, you know, no matter what it be, not get used to its greatest potential. So keep that in mind that if you are on a technical committee, especially in the state's capacity, make sure that you and your neighboring states are utilizing the program that you're working hard on. And next thing, so we're going to dive into now the leadership of each of the technical committees. As I mentioned, we've got a chairman and a vice chairman for each of the committees. Their main responsibility is to facilitate all of the conference calls. As I mentioned, most are done quarterly, and then we have one in-person meeting each spring. They serve as the spokesperson for the technical committee, and they are responsible for the overall quality and timely delivery of the work produced for the technical committee. I realize that a lot of the quality and timeliness of anything coming out of each of these committees is mainly due to the fact that a lot of volunteer efforts go on between state and industry to help make sure that the work plans, the evaluation programs, audit programs all include what they need to include in order to carry out the efforts needed for both states and industry. So, but the leadership of these committees help make this happen. The leadership of the committee also needs to be aware of the committee's purpose and draft all the meeting agendas along with any corresponding documents to be discussed either during the call or during the meeting. And if necessary, they should delegate tasks to technical committee members. I realize that all the roles we talk about here today are voluntary, but also the chair and the vice chair cannot do all of the work for all the technical committees. So, you know, encouraging them to rely on their members of the committee is also important here. And just a friendly note here, no individual may serve as a technical committee chair of more than one technical committee. And in the sense of the vice chairman, a vice chairman cannot be a vice chairman of more than 2 technical committees. And just like I mentioned with, you know, the NTPEP voting, non-voting member, whether you're a state member, it goes without saying that I would hope that the leadership of each of the technical committees is doing just this, being the champion of your committee that you're overseeing, that you're leading, reaching out to your colleagues within your neighboring states, making sure that these programs are being heavily utilized. Now I'm going to switch on over to the industry side of things, which is just as important as the state side. As I mentioned, it is a unique partnership. NTPEP is very unique in that fact within the AASHTO umbrella. We don't have any other technical service program that relies on industry as much as we rely on the state. So, which I think that's pretty fun, to be honest with you. So the representatives of industry who provide products to be evaluated and or audited for that specific technical committee is an industry representative. And another note here, the technical committee chairman may direct the industry representatives to designate a single representative to voice industry concerns, questions during conference calls and in-person meetings. What do I mean by this? That, you know, at times we all know that there may be contentious topics and we don't need 10 representatives being from company ABC to voice their concerns on what may be a contentious topic. So be mindful of that. Obviously, I don't think that happens very often, but we just don't want, I would hate to use the phrase gang up on the chair or vice chair or the states, but we just would like to respect the fact that you would bring one person on the call to represent your company. The industry representatives serve as non-voting members. The representative receives ballots and can provide comment, but cannot submit a vote. And like I mentioned, you would also receive the emails prompting you to submit, even though you can't vote, you're able to submit feedback on any type of documentation that does get balloted for NTPEP. For industry participants, these are individuals whose employer participates in the evaluation or audit program for that specific technical committee and can provide technical support to the committee. So the big difference between an industry participant versus an industry representative, you know, you are the individuals that are going on to data mine, you're submitting the application to have your product evaluated or to have your facility audited, whereas a industry participant may not be that individual going into data mine daily, either to access data or submit an application, yet they are employed by the manufacturer participating in the program and has technical expertise they can provide to the technical committee. Just as the industry representative, they serve as non-voting members. You can provide comments and submit your ballot results, but you cannot vote on any documentation. And the next industry category would be Technical Committee Industry Association. I realize not every single industry has an association, but these are groups of people that have a common interest to the technical committee. These groups may partner with the technical committee to ensure the evaluation and audit program includes the most current specifications and practices being used among all of industry, and they may participate on quarterly conference calls and attend the annual NTPEP meeting. And they also serve as the non-voting members, and they receive ballots through email, and you can provide comment, but no vote itself. And the last category here is the technical committee testing facility representatives, just as important as the industry participation I talked about, as well as state participation. Laboratories who are contracted with ASHA to perform the evaluations for the NTPEP programs may have a representative to each of the technical committees in which the evaluations are conducted for. These individuals also would serve as a non-voting member. The participant does receive the ballot, can provide comments, but not able to provide a vote. And like I mentioned, you would also receive the same email notification the other categories receive at the same time. So a lot of what I discussed here today, all this information is found in our Information and Operations Guide, which is found on the NTPEP.org website. And just by clicking on documents, it will open up to the Information Operations Guide, which is publicly available to you. Also, we talked about the tasks the liaisons are responsible for. To access the list of the technical committee liaisons, if you're not familiar with who that may be on the NTPEP team, you can click on this link here and it will open up a spreadsheet indicating who to contact in case you have any questions related to any of the technical committees under NTPEP. So with that, I realized that a lot of information was relayed to you today, but I will open it up now to the chat box if you guys have any comments, questions, concerns. So I'm going to go through these and see if, and please, if you haven't already done so, you can enter a question and here are any comments. I can adjust that as well. I'll give it a couple of minutes. Alrighty, I don't see any questions coming in, so I'll wrap up the webinar, but I do appreciate all of you participating on today's webinar. As I mentioned, I will upload the recording of this webinar onto the NTPEP YouTube channel. I'll send that link out via email within the next 24 hours or so. But again, thank you for participating on the webinar. If you have any questions that you can think of after this webinar wraps up, don't hesitate to reach out, but I do appreciate you being part of the webinar today, and please continue to carry out the tasks of NTPEP in order to make sure this program continues to be successful. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Take care.